A few years ago, I felt stuck. And maybe you felt that way too, that you're working hard, that you're paying your bills, and you're doing all the things that you're supposed to do, but somehow you're never getting ahead. That was me. I was a mama three, now mama four, teaching as an adjunct professor. We were paying the bills, but barely. And no matter how hard we worked, it felt like we were constantly trying to catch up. And the thing is, I didn't want to work more. I didn't want to spend even more time away from my kids. I didn't want to be tied down to a schedule, to a boss, to having to answer to somebody else's hours. I wanted flexibility, freedom, and the control over my own time. I had researched all the different ways to make money from home, and I didn't think that any of them were possible. But then a friend told me about something crazy, that people were making money selling used clothes online. And maybe you've heard stories like that before. And I assumed that those people online, that they were finding designer handbags, that they were finding luxury brands, rare collectibles, things that I would never be lucky enough to find. I figured that could work for them, but it would probably never work for me. Little did I know I was completely wrong, because the items that ended up changing my life, they weren't luxury items at all. Most of them came from giant blue bins filled with clothing nobody wanted anymore. If you've never seen a Goodwill outlet before, let me explain this. Most people, they're familiar with regular thrift stores where clothes are on the rack. The Goodwill outlet, it's different. Items are sold by the pound. Instead of hanging neatly on racks, they're thrown, dumped into giant blue bins. And a lot of these items, they're leftovers. They're things that have been discarded, things that shoppers have passed over, things that never even made it to the retail store because they're garbage or they look like they have little or no value. And I remember walking into one of these Goodwill outlets, AKA the bins, for the first time and thinking, this is crazy. I almost hightailed it out of there. It looked like junk. It looked chaotic. And it looked completely overwhelming. And honestly, it looked like the last place that I'd ever expect to find an opportunity. But then something happened. I started looking things up, and little by little, I realized I had been looking at it all wrong. This sweatshirt that was worn and that had stains, it sold for $56. And these boots that other people had passed over sold for $100. This Boeing sweatshirt sold for $28. It wasn't just one lucky item, but it happened again and again and again. The items that people had discarded a lot of times had value. They just didn't know it. And it was a huge shift for me, because sometimes I would pull something out that looked completely ordinary. A jacket, a pair of boots, a random shirt, a weird vintage piece, nothing that looked special. And then I'd look it up, and somebody somewhere was searching for that exact thing. Not because it was trendy, not because it was luxury, not because it was expensive, but because it solved a problem. It filled a need, it fit a style, it connected with a buyer. The lesson was that value and appearance are not the same thing. And sometimes the most valuable items don't look valuable at all. And that lesson changed everything for me, because once I started seeing value where other people didn't, I started seeing opportunity where other people didn't. So I started listing, not perfectly, not professionally, just consistently. It was a few items at a time, and then the sales started coming in. At first, it wasn't very much. I remember the first sale, I was walking through Costco and a pair of jeans sold for $28 plus shipping. And here's what nobody tells you. The first sale doesn't change your life. The 10th sale doesn't change your life. The 100th sale doesn't. But every sale changes your belief, because every sale is proof. Proof that somebody wanted what you found. Proof that your work mattered. Proof that progress is happening. Then I started hitting $100, $200, then seeing $500 and $700 months. And I remember realizing that I was onto something, that the preschool bill was covered and I had extra just from selling clothes. That was a huge moment for me. But it wasn't all about the money. It was about what the money represented, the possibility, the proof, the evidence that this could actually work. And that's when I started thinking bigger. Maybe this wasn't just extra money, which is nice, but maybe this could be something more. One of the things that I love about this business is that it worked around my life, not the other way around. I could source when I wanted, list what I want, work around nap schedules, school schedules, doctor's appointments, and sales come in while I'm sleeping, while I'm on vacation, spending time with my kids. And that flexibility was worth just as much to me as the money. Now, before we go any further, if you're wondering about how to get started with this for yourself, I put together a free checklist for you, and it'll walk you through the exact steps that I would take if I were starting from scratch today. You can grab it using the link below, because the truth is that there is a little bit of a learning curve. You need to learn how to price items. You have to learn how things like shipping works. You have to learn to identify demand. But none of those things are beyond what any average person can learn. And that's one of the biggest myths that I had before starting. I thought that I had to have special knowledge. I thought that I needed luxury brands, that I needed a lot of money. But I started with just $7. That's it. Yes, it only got me a couple of items, and it got me my first sales. Those sales, they're what paid for more inventory. It's how 2 items became 4, became 8, became 16. And before long, the business had started growing itself. Now, people often ask me if this is realistic, and the answer is yes, but it's also work. It's not magic. It's not passive income. It's what I would call semi-passive income. You put in the time, you have to learn. You're gonna make mistakes. Trust me, I've made plenty. I once ran a 99-cent auction with free shipping. That item sold for 99 cents and I had to pay to ship it. I literally lost money. I've made pricing mistakes. I've bought things that didn't sell. I've worried about returns. I've worried about scammers. But most of the fears I had never actually happened. And one thing that surprised me was how low returns were. For me, they've typically been around 2% or less. And another surprise was how little space I needed. I started storing inventory in my 2 drawers of my dresser. That's it. Not a warehouse, not a closet, not a storage unit, just 2 drawers. And even with that tiny amount of space, I started seeing a few $100s a month. A lot of people think that you need thousands of items. I've never even hit the 1,000 listing mark, because what matters, it's not how much inventory you have. It's how quickly you turn it over. That's what creates your income. And over time, that income continues to grow. My confidence grew, the business grew, and eventually I started tracking our progress toward paying off our house. Every month I'd color in another house, not because I thought that we would pay it off quickly, but because I needed a reminder that progress was happening. It felt almost silly. When I got started, there were 100 houses there for me to fill in. It felt impossible, out of reach, like it was never gonna happen. And little by little, those houses got colored in until one day there wasn't anything left to color in. And honestly, what I remember most isn't requesting the payoff statement. It's not wiring that final payment. It's realizing that opportunities are often hiding in the places that are most overlooked. And sometimes the thing that changes your life doesn't look impressive when you first find it. Sometimes it looks like a giant blue bin full of stuff that nobody wanted. If you're ready to get started and bringing in money today with this, I do have a ultimate reseller starter kit that is gonna give you everything you need to get started quickly. And if you wanna see exactly how I find profit inside of the bins that I mentioned, just click or tap the video on your screen right now and I'll show you exactly what I look for. Click here and I'll see you there.